Hey there guys, this is Austin from Precision Camera, and today we're going to be going over camera essentials. This is going to be a multi-part series that is going to give you the knowledge you need to get started in photo and video. And today we're going to be covering one of the quintessential concepts in photography, the exposure triangle. And to help me is Carl. If you haven't seen Carl, he's from our Sigma Cinema video. If you ever want to check that out, just hit that link right up above and let's jump into the video. And of course, before we get started, I want to go ahead and let you know, if you want to expand your video or photo knowledge, especially outside of this video, go ahead and go to precision-camera.com/classes and sign up for one of our classes today. So what is the exposure triangle? The exposure triangle is a combination of ISO, shutter speed, and aperture to help you get the perfect exposure. Let's start with one of the more familiar elements to everybody, aperture. Aperture is the amount of light the lens lets in via the aperture blade opening, and can give you the effect of bokeh, as well as giving you better low light performance via the lens itself. And aperture is usually measured via f-stops in photo and t-stops in video. And generally it's kind of golf rules. Smaller the number, the brighter the lens, or in photography terms, the faster the lens. So the faster your lens, the brighter it is. And the trade-off for bokeh, or what you can see behind me that's isolating me off the background, is smaller the number or faster the lens, the more bokeh you have. And the bigger the number, the less light you let in and the less bokeh you have, giving you deep focus. Shutter speed is how long light is allowed to enter your camera. To put it simply, the faster your shutter speed, the crisper your shot, but less light is let in. Whereas with a longer shutter speed, more light is let in, but you could introduce motion blur. So shutter speed is also measured in its own way, measured generally in fractions of a second, between 1 second and 1/8,000th of a second, or it can be held open longer for more niche photography like astro or longer exposures. A golden rule in photography is if you don't know how slow you can shoot on your particular lens, especially if you're shooting in night situations where you have to push your camera a little harder. A golden rule is that you can use your lens length as a barometer. So if you're shooting at an 85mm range, probably don't shoot below 1/100th or 1/80th of a second if you don't want handshake. But consider that you will also have motion blur from your subject. Whereas if you're shooting with a 70-200 and you're all the way out at 200mm, you could get away with 1/200th of a second without any stabilization. And we're going to come to our final piece of the triangle, ISO. What is it? Well, to be put simply, it's how sensitive you're making your camera to light. How much electricity you're throwing through your sensor so it becomes more sensitive to those light particles. ISO is measured on a range of 100 and higher. So higher ISO, the better it is in low light, but as a traded effect, you're going to get more grain. I do want to add as a caveat, especially in photography, that grain is not bad. You will never get a crystal clear image unless you're shooting on a 150 megapixel, $200,000 camera, and even then, without the right settings, it's going to get grain. But what you can do is control that grain. So the lower your ISO, the less grain you have, and you just need a little extra light to make it happen. But I do want to end off with grain is not bad. It's just part of the photography experience. What I will say is, from the beginning, it's a little bit easier now that the advent of mirrorless cameras have been around for a while, because you can see your exposure in real time. And this kind of changes when you get into flash, but we'll cover that in a different video. Today we're going to be looking at base exposure work. So breaking down these base elements like we were before, we're going to be looking at essentially using our light meter, as well as our camera to shoot Carl here in real time. I do want to call back to the shutter speed portion of this video because you have to keep your subject in mind. Because if you're shooting something like F1 racing, you still have to crank your shutter speed to make sure that your motion blur stays perfect. Or, considering that Carl here doesn't move very much, and I don't have to do much to kind of get him perfectly in focus or perfectly in frame. Alrighty, we're gonna kind of strap in for a portrait session with Mr. Carl here. And what I'm doing is looking at my light meter here on the top of the camera and in my viewfinder. I do definitely need to have my shutter speed probably right around 125 because I am shooting with a 24-105 lens. That'll give me the flexibility to go as wide or as telephoto as I want and not have to worry about motion blur. Alrighty, I kind of bring it on in, and the moment I bring it up to my eye, he's super dark, so that I can't even see him because my ISO is too low. Kind of going in, I'm going to go through and adjust my ISO a little higher. I will admit, I'm going to get a little bit of grain in this shot because I'm having to shoot right around 1600 ISO. And now we're ready to shoot the shot, and this is what we get. But I will say, this is more of a controlled setting. So this is kind of one example of taking advantage of your exposure triangle whenever you have a chance to deal with a non-moving subject. But there are times whenever you're shooting, you're gonna have no control of those surroundings, and this is where knowledge of the exposure triangle is gonna make or break you there. And that's gonna wrap up our breakdown of the exposure triangle. Using these three elements together can give you perfect exposures, but once you master them, break those rules a little bit and have a little fun. And that's gonna wrap up today's video, and if you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe down below, and don't forget to hit the notification bell right over there, and of course, if you want to learn more, go to precision-camera.com/classes and check out our class list and get signed up today. My name is Austin from Precision Camera, and as always, it's good to see you guys, and I hope you have a great day and happy shooting.